Hello again and welcome to Forum for a Better Understanding. You know, we just had a show with a single guest last week, Brian Jessup, who was the one who inspired us 10 years ago to create Forum for a Better Understanding. And today we have a panel of 3, and then we'll have in our second half of the show another guest joining. We just hope that the variety of this program is also enriching you as it has enriched me prepping for the program. Now, the topic today is very, very important for those that live in Fresno. It's called Taking Back the City One Night at a Time. The Fresno Bee did an article on this fantastic program called Night Walks, Walking in Faith. Back in December, there was a feature story, and today we're so glad to interview some of the people who are involved in this project. To my immediate left is our first guest, Pastor Booker T. Lewis II, who is pastor of Rising Star Missionary Baptist Church in West Fresno. In the middle of our group is Andy Levine, who happens to be the executive director of Faith and Community. It's an organization of 20 churches and 2 organizations, interfaith, that is working on social issues with a faith base. And across from me is Bryson White, a community organizer for that fantastic group called Faith and Community. I wonder if we could begin with this opening thought to our 3 guests. What is the main mission, your main passion in your ministry that you are engaged in right now? What is the spark? What is the mission? What is the ministry? Pastor Lewis.
Well, I pastor Rising Star, a church, and so our main goal, of course, is to reach everyone in our community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's our goal. That's what we do. In the process of doing that, we've learned that before we can reach people, we have to build some relationships with our community. And so that kind of leads into how we've embraced the concept of night walks. So our goal is evangelism. Our goal is to equip people to live better lives under the umbrella of their faith, and then also to do our best to provide some services and provide some assistance to people in need in our community.
Thank you, Pastor Booker T. Andy, what about Faith and Community?
Yes, Faith and Community is in a sense about undoing injustices, systemic injustices through policy change or otherwise. But for me and for us, I'd say it's really at the core about lifting up new values. So organizing people of faith and faith institutions to not just create policy change, but to really change the narrative about what it means to be a human and living morally in a city like Fresno, and in a way that's not partisan or political, but about just our faith values and the humanity of everyday people.
Andy, you're fresh from a meeting with Bishop an hour ago. So can you tell us the excitement or the progress made meeting with Bishop Armando Ochoa?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first and foremost, just really humbled to have an incredible leader like Bishop Ochoa here in our valley, in a place that needs it so dearly, and had a great conversation with Bishop Ochoa about the current debate around fixing our broken immigration system, and how we can all really lift up our own voices and help our elected representatives to become their best selves and understand the need for a pathway to citizenship within that broken immigration system.
Awesome. Any concrete steps going to be taken because of this meeting with Bishop?
Hoping to bring together parishioners from across the diocese and everyday people of faith with our elected representatives, with our Congress people in the Fresno area and the Central Valley, to have a big public forum on what it will look like if Congress this year is to fix that broken immigration system.
Awesome. This is a long, long battle that you've been fighting, and congratulations that Bishop is stepping up where Bishop John had also led before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bryson, you're a community organizer at this fantastic Faith and Community. You're also a strong member at St. Rest. Tell us about either of that project.
Yes, I'm a youth and young adult minister at St. Rest Baptist Church in West Fresno. where we seek to impact our community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so my passion as a member and a minister of St. Rest is to reconnect our church with our surrounding neighborhood, and to be able to begin to have the church really exist out of the four walls of the church and really exist as a church for the neighborhood, and not just a church in the neighborhood, but a church for the neighborhood. And so my passion is to connect ministers and local lay leaders into our neighborhoods, and so that's why I'm so attracted to the night walks.
I'm so glad to meet the three of you on this same panel. I can't wait to find out more about this wonderful project. So let's begin with the first question about night walks. Briefly, what is night walks, and when did it all start? And maybe Pastor Booker T. Lewis can start us off, and then the others can join in where appropriate. Booker.
Well, I think Andy can give us some history on night walks, and then I can tell you how Andy and I engage one another.
Super. Andy, you're up.
Yeah, so it started off, I'd say first and foremost, as just a concern in the community about the violence that was occurring across our communities. And within that, a concern that whenever attempts had been made in Fresno historically to address issues like violence, it had really been from a law enforcement and police department side. And while we completely respect and understand the role that the Fresno Police Department and law enforcement needs to play in our community, frankly, we felt like this was an area where law enforcement couldn't play the role, that it really would take a faith-based grassroots approach to understand the root causes of violence, so really recognizing that people aren't just choosing to be violent, but it's really a reflection of years and decades of neglect and discrimination in specific neighborhoods. And so it would take people like the two pastors to my right and left, with the real credibility and connection in the community, to go out and meet people where they're at, understand the lived experiences, and understand what needed to be done to create opportunities to avoid these issues. And so one of the advantages of being a faith and community being in the PICO national network, it's a national faith-based community organizing network, is we're able to sort of pull on from our other brothers and sister federations in other cities, models and lessons learned that are working in other places. And what we were really able to figure out is there was this Boston ceasefire model that had been started in Boston in the 90s, that had been tried and was being done in Fresno to a certain extent, but was not really engaging the faith and grassroots community in the way that it was in other places, specifically these night walks, as a way that was really complementary to whatever law enforcement needs to play. So we brought in some pastors and others from other places to help us understand what this could look like here in Fresno.
When was that, Andy? When did you bring in the pastors?
So it was really spearheaded at that point by Reverend Henry Oputa from the Way Christian Fellowship, and that was I think it was about April of 2012.
Wow. And then when did Booker T. Lewis get involved?
I'll pass that over to him.
So I attended that meeting, and the conversation in that meeting disturbed me some.
In what way disturbed?
We had representatives. They brought in representatives from Sacramento to talk about their experience with night walks and their relationship with the police department in the city of Sacramento. And as I listened to it, I was concerned because the relationship that they have in Sacramento was not the relationship that I felt was possible here in Fresno at that time. So before we could have a conversation about night walks, we needed to have a conversation with our police department, because our community here in Fresno has not learned to trust our police department. This is not anything that a conversation that I have not already had with Chief Dyer and some of his other officers, Captain Garner, who has been responsible for several years for the Southwest Division of our city. And so we have to first engage our community and build a relationship with our community. And like Andy said, in order to reach the systemic causes of gang violence in our communities, we don't believe that the police department is positioned to do that, and it's going to take a different approach than maybe is used. We're going to tweak it a bit in Fresno so that it fits the circumstances and the variables that we're dealing with in our community.
Bryson, where do you fit into this mix at this point? It seems like it began here. Where did Bryson White join?
Right, so I wasn't involved in the formation of night walks, but I came in about September when I began walking the neighborhood. So I started joining Andy and Pastor Lewis walking through the Brookhaven neighborhood. And I was really just taken aback by the strategy of it and the way in which we can actually connect with our neighbors. And it was just a very good thing for me to see clergy from different ministries, from different churches coming together to walk through our neighborhood. So I came in September, and now I'm involved in the Brookhaven neighborhood, and we've started a night walk at St. West Baptist Church on Tuesday. So just looking to expand and bring more clergy and leaders into the night walk conversation.
Now, there's a beautiful little brochure that's been prepared that helped me get an outline for the program. Our motive, our mission, our message, our method. So I wonder if we could talk now a little bit about the motive. Mm-hmm. We know that you have these night walks. What's the concrete, practical, realistic motive behind this? What's the energy behind it? Who wants to start with that?
Well, I think the motive for taking the concept that I learned about, and first time I met Andy in that meeting, I think the motive was at the same time my son showed me a video of a group of young adults, some of whom attend our church, that were involved in a early Sunday morning event at one of our gas stations, the Shell station that's no longer there.
This wasn't a church event, I don't think.
No, sir.
No, not a church
No,
event.
sir. And one of the young ladies that had attended our church was involved in this activity, and it broke my heart, and it raised my awareness that there was a concern, that there was a need for a concern in our community for our young adults. And so I was moved to not only start, we have started not only what we call neighborhood walks, but also a club walk, a late night walk, where we try to reach some of our young adults that are out in the streets in the midnight to 2 and 3 hours of the morning.
Oh my.
And trying to reach them with a message of living differently, changing their lifestyle, and trying to bring them into a place where they seek peace rather than violence. They learn how to cope with their differences in a different way, and then look for opportunities to live a better and more productive life.
You know, we unfortunately got my signal that we're at half point, but I'll give Andy one more chance before we take the break. Is there something, Andy, that you know you needed to say before we have Carmen replace you?
You know, I would just say on in terms of how this kind of works with the other work that Faith and Community is involved with is a lot of it, as I said in the beginning, is it's about really recognizing the just the basic dignity and humanity of everyday people. So especially in a place that's as unequal and really divided as a place like Fresno, so many times it becomes, you know, a us versus them, or one side versus the other. And this is really about just understanding that we are all our brother's keeper, and we are all really in this together to understand how we move forward together. So it's not doing something for somebody else; it's actually joining together to get there collectively at the same time.
I want to thank our first panel. We're going to take our little break that they put into our show, but don't go anywhere, because in 1 minute we'll be right back with another special guest to join our panel. Stay tuned.
KNXT TV is proud to say thank you to all its viewers who have given their support for over 25 years. And only through your support is KNXT able to provide spiritual and informative programming. Please remember KNXT in your long-term support through wills, bequests, trust, and planned giving. Your gift is important to the future of Catholic television. Help preserve the strength of KNXT's message based on the teachings of Christ. Keep KNXT in your future plans.
Hello again, and welcome to the second half of our very important program on night walks, Walking in Faith in West Fresno, a group that is formed that has been trying to take back the streets, take back the city for themselves and for their families. We have a new guest who's joining us in the middle of our team here, Carmen Cancio. Carmen, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, New Beginnings International, and your connection to Night Walks?
Hi, I'm Carmen, and my husband and I and our children, we belong to New Beginnings International, which is a little Filipino-American church. And I learned about night walks, or we learned about night walks through the Bringing Broken Neighborhoods Back to Life meeting that is held on Tuesday mornings at the Southwest Precinct.
Is that with Captain Garner?
It is. And Sergeant Greg Knoll. And that's where we learned about night walks. And we just realized that this is a way that we can continue to make an impact on our community by reaching out to others.
Let's go back to our M's. We got as far as doing our motive. We know why we're doing it. Now the mission. I wonder if Pastor Lewis could introduce us to the mission of Night Walks.
Well, the mission of Night Walks, we have a collaboration of churches. We have Rising Star, St. Res, New Beginnings International. We have Free AME, Westside Church of God has representation there. We have St. Mark, Pastor Adams, and we have, who am I forgetting?
Rising Star.
Yeah, Rising Star. And so we have several churches that have joined together.
Awesome.
Second Baptist, Pastor Melvin Whittle.
That's right.
And so I apologize if I've missed any.
That's
I don't have
7 already. That's quite
So
impressive.
that's a collaboration of churches. We have night walks on Wednesday night from Rising Star in that area around the Palm Kearney Shopping Center. St. Res has a walk on Tuesday evenings in their neighborhood around Big B Villa in that area. And then the Second Baptist, we kick off from Second Baptist and go into Brookhaven, which a lot of people call Dog Pound, but that we call it Brookhaven. And the purpose is to listen, to learn, to love on our neighbors, build relationships with them, so that we give them some other options to addressing the powers that be concerning issues in their community, and hopefully building relationships also with the club walk, the late night walk, where we go out in and around club parking lots and meet people out there, because there we're really looking for people involved that may be involved in gang activity, and to try to build relationships with them so that we can talk to them about maybe considering other options and other lifestyles, and try to give them some new hope and some different dreams. And that's the mission of Night Walks.
Anything else on the mission? We still have message and method to talk about. Anything else on mission, or are we?
I think Pastor, I think he
covered that one. Mm-hmm. Now, what we could do is look at the message. Obviously, increase peace, stop violence, work to create opportunities, pray for the peace. Why don't we maybe look at some pictures that might give us a, is this when we wanted to see the pictures?
Yeah, let's see the pictures.
Why don't we roll some of the pictures, Gonzalo, and let the panel share as they see a picture. Feel free to comment. What do we have first?
This is our prayer at the beginning of a night walk, where we unite and we make sure we go out in the power of the Spirit in prayer with one another, and we're able to lift up the concerns of our community even before we go out.
Who do we have here?
Well, it's the same kind of picture. It's a picture of us just, that's early in the process, because we have some different shirts now with the red involved, so that's how we know the time frame. But there's also a strategy too. We give safety tips. We have safety tips that we got from the Sacramento team that we share with our group. There's a training that we go through. The night walkers that have been consistent are well versed in the message, and so we are not out for personal agendas. We're not out for our individual churches, but we're out there to use our faith and the gospel of Jesus Christ to help people to understand that they have opportunity to make different choices in life.
Is that the club walk there?
That is not the club walk. That's probably the Kearney Palms Shopping Center.
There's the
That's probably Kearney Palms Shopping Center. And Yeah, so we go out with a message, and everybody is pretty versed in this message, but to increase the peace. We tell our neighbors that we introduce ourselves. We ask for permission to take down any information that they might want to share with us. We talk to them about stopping the violence in their neighborhood. And also, we listen to them to try to hear where we can be active or engaged with them in trying to connect them with new opportunities in their lives. There may be a need for resources. Love Inc. have made themselves available, like in case there are people that need some services that we run into. And so we try to listen to the needs of people, and we have tried to do some things on an individual basis to help address some of the needs for folks in our community.
And you know, we have a lot of we have this plan and purpose of what we're doing, but it's really about us going out as individuals and making a difference in relations with other people. I mean, yes, we are trying to encourage peace. We're trying to stop the violence. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get the residents that are living in these areas where we're walking to understand that they have the power to make a difference in their lives. But we want to show them that other people care, and that we want to be a part of them. We want to be part of their lives. We want to get to know them and walk beside them as they make their changes in their life along with us.
Right. If I can add, the Night Walks is a part of PICO's national campaign called the Lifelines to Healing, which seeks to create space for people to have move from places of death, if you will, to places of life. And under that is our engagement against the system of mass incarceration, which is gobbling up so many black and brown families across the nation. And so Night Walks fits under that rubric, and it's a way of us engaging young folks and people in the neighborhood and having a message of peace and decreasing of violence, so people aren't being gobbled up by the system of mass incarceration that's taking place.
You know, Michelle Alexander was mentioned in the previous program. Mm-hmm. She comes up indirectly right here. The phenomenon of mass incarceration of African Americans especially is something that it's an abomination, but it's also great that you are seeing a way to stop it, to kind of put an alternative to what is the normal routine of this is what's going to happen because this is our country. We can take back the country. We can change. Thank you for that. Now, one thing, Bryson, I'm very interested in, how has been the response of the younger community? You work with youth ministry. I'm wondering, and all of you can chip in, but Bryson first, how responsive is the younger demographic to this project?
From my perspective, I think that they've been pretty responsive. We walk up on young folks in the neighborhood, and like we said, we don't judge anyone. We meet people right where they're at. So we walk up on some young folks, and they might be drinking their beer, they might be smoking marijuana, but for us it doesn't matter. We just engage them right where they are. And Pastor Lewis especially is actually very effective at at walking up on folks and engaging young people and kind of just getting into their space. And I feel like they've been very receptive to us. And there's only been a few who've not wanted prayer or not engaged us, but mostly they've engaged us very, very positively.
You know, you mentioned engagement. That would move us right into we have 5 minutes left, so we have to talk fast. Our methodology. You have 7 principles of engagement. I wonder if any of you want to unpack any of those principles, not even in order, but the way you'd like to share. Engagement sounds where Carmen was going before, the whole idea of relationship. We need to create unity among ourselves. So what's one of the principles of engagement?
Let me say this before we start that. These principles come, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, out of John chapter 4. Mm. And what caught my eye when I prayed about this after meeting Andy and hearing the concept, I prayed about this, and where the Lord led me was to John chapter 4, and He led me to the conversation that Jesus had with the woman at the well before He got to the living water. Mm. He actually got to know her.
Oh yeah.
He actually got to know her, and that's pretty much where these principles come from.
Yeah. If I can speak To number 3, we approach them on their time and on their terms, and tell just a very, very brief story. There's a family in the back of Brookhaven on George Street, which is in the very back of the neighborhood. It's very isolated, and we've been walking that neighborhood for a while now, and we encountered a certain family that didn't talk to us the entire time in which we've been walking by. Like, we'll say hi, and they kind of just, nod their head, but they really just want us to push on, But as we kept walking, and as they saw that we were serious in walking, they began to open up, and one of the men who sits in front of the home says, "Oh, I know who you are, Pastor Lewis, and I respect you, Pastor Lewis." And then he asked our names. "Oh, your name is Bryson." Okay, because they've seen us walking this entire time. So, so the shell that they once had and the suspicion that they once had, and rightfully so to be suspicious of us, broke down over the time period of us walking. Yeah.
Carmen, what would be one of your experiences on any of these walks, this methodology? How do you engage with people?
Well, as a family, because my entire family walks, my husband and at least 3 of our children.
How old are the kids?
Well, we have a 16-year-old. We have 6, but the 3 that walk are 16-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Awesome.
And what we do is we just walk the neighborhood. We see somebody outside, we tell them good evening or good afternoon, and how is your day? We just engage them in conversation, and then when if they're open to talking to us, then we ask them questions like, what do you like about your neighborhood? Do you mind if we ask you questions? What do you like about your neighborhood? What are some things that you'd like to change? And then normally we ask them, is there anything that we can pray about? And we've had wonderful conversations with everything from elderly that have lived in the neighborhood for a very long time to the little kids. We interact with the children that are playing outside. It's all about relationship.
One thing is, I'm going to show you a picture that I showed you at the beginning, but I'm going to introduce you to someone else. We got Reverend Lewis over here. Everyone can see Reverend Lewis waving. And then on the other side is Carmen Cancio. It gives you an idea that this is a truly interfaith, a truly ecumenical, and a truly biracial effort. This is something that's engaging people who want to really take care of the city. I'm going to give you all 15 seconds each, a final thought. Booker, can you do it in 15 seconds? A final thought.
I think I can. Carmen mentioned asking them questions. We take information. Bryson has been active in trying to correlate and to categorize that information, because one of our goals is to take the information about the concerns that our neighbors have for their own community and then help them to introduce that to some of our city officials that may be able to help them make some changes in their community that will make their community a better place to live.
Carmen, 10 seconds.
Thank you for showcasing Night Walk and allowing us to share it.
We are so privileged to do that. Bryson.
The power is in the community, and there's a lot of power in our neighborhoods that have been overlooked by the city, and I look forward to seeing them continue to rise up.
Yeah.
I want to thank our tremendous panel. We had Pastor Booker T. Lewis, we had Carmen Cancio, we had Bryson White, and we also had Andy Levine from Faith in Community. I hope you will follow this story. You'll watch us on YouTube, and then you'll also go and decide to do something about your neighborhood the way Walks in Faith has been doing and Night Walks on the west side in Fresno. Till next time, God bless.